Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you have joined from. My name is Balrama, and I'm your host today. First, thank you all for registering and taking the time to join us today for this webinar on how AI is transforming customer service. I have a few housekeeping announcements before we begin. At any time during the webinar, please feel free to ask questions by typing them into the questions or chat window on your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the session. Following the webinar, the recording will be available and shared with all the attendees. If you experience any technical issues, please visit the Help menu in the GoToWebinar control panel on the right of your screen. Lastly, I've placed all of you on mute to prevent any background noise. A quick background on Appstec. We provide customized IT consulting services for companies ranging from mid-size to Fortune 100 enterprises across a wide range of industry verticals. Leveraging agile practices, Appstec SMEs, architects, and associates build software applications, platforms, and products that become primary drivers of innovation and revenue growth for our clients and their businesses. Appstec is recognized for driving quality and speed to market when business success depends on the software applications. Founded in 2007, Appstec is headquartered in Addison, Texas, with offices in USA, Canada, Middle East, and Hyderabad, India. Coming to the topic of today's webinar, research indicates organizations that provide superior customer service tend to perform better financially. Most customers avoid going to the same organization after one bad experience. They face varied challenges in enhancing customer service, driving greater marketing ROI, building customer loyalty, and improving employees' efficiency. Due to these issues, companies are under continuous pressure and simultaneously looking for an effective support system that not only leverages their efficiency, but can also help them eliminate all the challenges faced. AI is being injected into every customer touchpoint, from intelligent routing of calls, mimicking human support, IVR, providing support to agents, and rating customer satisfaction. In this webinar, we'll focus on some of the key areas where AI is transforming customer service and its impact on the industries. A few key takeaways from the webinar: understanding the touch points where AI can make a difference in the customer experience, how organizations are benefited by implementing AI for customer experience, should we go for COTS or custom implementations, do we need AI implementation for our organization, go-to-market strategy adopted by organizations, and finally, how do we measure the return on investment, ROI. A quick introduction about today's presenter, Prasanna. He has over 17 years of experience developing enterprise-grade applications. During this period, he has worked for many Fortune 500 companies and helped them adopt transformative technologies like cloud and AI. As a part of the Appstec family, he's currently building data science IPs as well as providing consulting services to customers to implement data science solutions. Prasanna has a master's degree in data science from BITS Pilani and a diploma in AI from IIIT Hyderabad. I'll now hand it over to Prasanna. Prasanna, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Balrama. So quickly, good morning and good evening, everyone. So we'll quickly move to the agenda of today's meeting, where I will first start off with introducing a few terminologies, and then we'll review the key takeaways. And then we'll talk a little bit about what customers are expecting from organizations these days. When they say customer service, what is their expectations? And from an organization perspective, what are the current challenges they are facing? And then how AI is transforming or handling some of these challenges. And then we will review the best practices while implementing some of the AI strategies. And then finally, from an organization perspective, we'll just review, say, what are the benefits, or even if you want to implement, are there any alternatives? If you want to implement, what is the build versus buy strategy, and what should be a go-to-market strategy? And eventually, we'll just touch base on what the future of AI and customer service looks like. And then finally, we'll spend some time taking at the Q&A. So a few key terminologies. One is customer service. So these days, customer service is defined as the support which is provided to the customer during the pre-sales, or while the customer is here to buy some product, or during his purchase and post the purchase of service. So the whole idea is to make him a very easy and enjoyable experience. And then today, customer service is a lot more proactive. And then customers expect that they need immediate support. through any channel of their choice. It could be phone, it could be email, it could be text or anything. Now, traditionally, we are aware of call centers. Call centers actually support only one channel, which is a phone. And now these days we are calling them contact center. Contact centers actually support multiple channels. Coming to AI, so we have three different AIs which kind of support customer service. One is the assisted intelligence, which is a plain RPA bot where you're trying to implement basic RPA along with some basic tasks. Augmented intelligence involves a little bit of deep learning models. It is the most common form of AI which you look at it, which is getting implemented. But the difference is in augmented learning, right? Augmented intelligence. What happens is the AI makes all the decisions, but it leaves to the customer to make a final decision. Let's say it could be like, hey, these are your Netflix recommendations. What do you want to choose from this? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is augmented intelligence. Autonomous intelligence is like the highest form of AI, where the machine actually makes all the decisions for you, and then it actually is a self-surviving system on its own. More an example would be more like a self-driving car, a full-fledged self-driving car. Some of the metrics which we usually measure in customer service world are, what is an intent? When we say intent, right, why is the customer trying to reach out to any of your channels? What is the intent? We are trying to decipher the reason which he is trying to reach out. Net promoter score. Net promoter score is a single question where we ask to the customers saying that how likely are you going to recommend this particular brand to any of your friends or relatives. First contact resolution is in a sense, if I'm a customer trying to reach out to through any of your channels to your contact center, is my issue getting resolved in first the contact or not? Satisfaction index, customer satisfaction index is whether the customer is satisfied through his experience, and effort score is finally how much effort the customer is trying to put to reach out to a brand. Let's say I am a company which supports only in-store purchases, right? I don't have any helplines, or I don't have any messenger. So if the customer needs any support, he has to go all the way to the store where he purchased, and then he has to try to reach out to the company. So in that case, a customer effort score. So we're going to see through our presentation in the next 40-45 minutes on how AI is trying to improve some of these metrics. Okay. So key takeaways, quickly summarizing. So we are going to see how AI is making a difference through all these entire customer service life cycle, actually, where all AI can play a role. We're going to also see a list of all different products from messaging apps to customer assist tools and so forth. And finally, this is still a largely unorganized sector where there is a little standard, where there is very little standardization. Every company is trying to implement their own standards. So what some of these giants like Google and Apple or Samsung, they said, oh, hey guys, we'll step in and start standardizing some of these services so that you can leverage our services, and then there is some best practices. And finally, we are going to review, do I even need it to my organization? If you want, what should be the AI strategy? And once you implement the AI strategy, how do you measure your return on investment or some of the KPIs? So what is customer expectations, right? So why do consumers reach out to the brands in Simpson? So when customers reach out to brands, it is actually, it could be a very simple task like, I want to know the interest loan rate on my car loan, or I want to know the status of the order, or it could be a much more complex task. It could be saying that there is an unrecognized transaction or a bill, or if I'm trying to reach a telephone company, say I want to change my plan, or I want to raise some kind of a complaint. So customers, when they reach out to brands, it could be something, a self-service thing, which is a quick answer, pretty much straightforward, or complex task, and pretty much all the tasks actually range from a simple to a complex. So on-demand services, what is the on-demand service model? So if you look at some of these technology-enabled services, it could be something like a cab aggregator, like a Uber or a Netflix, right? So what happens is I open a mobile app, and then all I have to do is I have to enter the source and destination. It will automatically map to the nearest cab, and then once the cab driver comes in, I will have to just board the cab, and then there could be a little or no talking with the cab driver, and then he drops me off the destination, and then there is a feedback cycle. I rate it and this. So service is pretty much seamless. If I want to avail a cab, it is just like few clicks. No one is, and I don't need to talk to anyone. Everything happens to a mobile app, and then at the end of there is a feedback mechanism, right? But if you look, this is the way technology-enabled service is working. But if you look at from the customer perspective, what customer is demanding is, hey, if your service can be so seamless, why can't your customer support or customer service be seamless, so much seamless? If I need any support, it has to be actually that seamless as well. So service delivery is seamless, why is not customer? So unfortunately, we have not seen so much seamlessness in customer service again, in case the customer requires any kind of support. So current challenges from an organization perspective. So when I talk about customer service, right, today organizations are forced to support multiple channels, right? It could be a messaging channel, something like a Facebook or a Twitter. You have to support a web and a mobile. Have to support email as well. Phone is my traditional channel, and now these days we are talking about a personal assistant like a Alexa or Siri as well, right? So from an organization perspective, I have to support multiple channels. Worst is not all these channels share the same kind of capabilities, right? So if I start with a Alexa or a Siri, then it will provide me some basic services. If I need more, if I want to do some more complex tasks, again, I have to pick up my phone, I have to call the customer helpline number and get it done, or I have to send an email. And then again, the other challenge is I start conversing with Siri, okay, and then there is an issue. Then I call, when I try to reach out to the helpline number, right? Again, I have to tell the entire story to the helpline, to the contact center person, because he has no idea on what I've been interacting with Siri on my personal device, right? So the context is not carried. Majority of the time, customers are forced into multiple channels. So net result, if today, right, I have to get a complex issue resolved, so I have to start. I will either start with some of the one of the self-service devices or a messaging channel. I've spent on it chatting there, and then I move to the IVR. Then again, I've spent like 2-3 minutes over the IVR, and then at the end of it, again I have to talk to the customer service agent actually. So net result, I'm kind of spending like 10 to 12 minutes or up to 15 minutes on trying to resolve this issue. So what are the challenges? So if you look at the way we worked out, the organization supports in 1990, right? They had only two different channels to support. One is either could be the in-store support, or it could be the helpline, right? So if the customer is also clear, right? You need a help, you call one of these things, okay? And then the resolution. So we were, in terms of customer service, we were actually better off in the 1990s resolving the issues than today, actually. Organizations are increasing investment in customer service. Uh, it could be in terms of supporting multiple channels, or it could be in terms of trying to support a 24/7. So the investment has increased, but however the net performance score or the first call resolution are still not reached at that particular stage, right? Where customers are able to get their issues resolved in the first go, irrespective of the channel. Okay. So the other issue organizations are facing is with the competition heating up, especially through tech-enabled service. Right? Now, recent researchers have indicated that if a customer faces one bad experience, is not likely going to return back to your brand again. Actually, he's going to move to your competitor, and then you lose one of your customer. So these are some of the challenges which organizations are facing. So quickly, so we'll see how AI is transforming some of these services. So if you look at it, the first touch point is an intelligent call routing, right? Let's say I call my 1-800 number these days, right? So you see a AI-based IVR. Now the traditional IVR is gone, where where we used to enter like one for let's say banking accounts, two for credit cards. So that is replaced by more personalized or a human-based IVR, where I have to just talk to it and this thing. So intelligent call routing. also involves, I'm sorry, intelligent call routing also involves, let's say I'm talking from some tornado affected area, right? So this call routing algorithm will automatically pick up and then it will redirect the call to a specific contact center agent who is equipped with, handling some of these disasters. So call routing, or if I'm a repeat customer, it will actually try and route to the same contact center agent who has helped me. So intelligent call routing system. AI-based IVR, the new IVR where you can actually talk to the IVR rather than select a 1, 2, 3, 4 option. Messaging AI, we have seen chatbots or conversational AIs which are more popular these days actually, where you can actually see everything. Customer assist is a new type of tools. Actually, what happens in customer assist is when the call actually gets transferred, the chat actually gets transferred to the customer service agent, you will have some background process which will monitor how the call is going or how the chat is going, and then they will quickly pull up the information required for the customer assist. So customer assist actually helps speed up the thing. AI-driven insights, a lot of insights are getting captured these days. Personalization, Netflix, a classic example of personalization. You also have sentiment analysis, how how calls are happening and everything. Email tagging is one more item where, if I send out an email to the support personnel, then it will pull out and add relevant tags to those particular emails where, hey, this is issue 1 tag with this thing, issue 2, issue 3, and things of those sort. So in the interest of time, we are going to cover only the 4 items which are actually covered in blue over here, which is email tagging, AI-based IVR, and messaging and customer assist. Probably we'll cover in subsequent sessions the remaining 4 which have been highlighted in black over here. Moving on. So messaging AI. So messaging AI is the most common form of AI which we see. You see a basic chatbot, which is purely interface driven. Let's say you open any kind of application today, you are going to see a chatbot there which says, which will provide you 1, 2, 3, 4 options. You click on one, then it will take a different flow. If you click on 2, it will take a different flow. It's largely interface driven. Basic Q&A and self-service. It is highly business specific. Let's say I've today added it. Let's say I'm a bank and I've added only to support credit card. So tomorrow I have to expand the same to loans as well, right? Again, I have to implement a different functionality. I have to expand it. So it's not scalable. It has very limited functionality. Whatever you implement, it's a more a combination of a rule-based versus a basic AI. Basic AI in the sense it will actually scan through the documents and then it can pull out relevant information. Let's say you want to implement something like, hey, some support for COVID-19, it can actually scan through the COVID-19 document and pull out information. Conversational AI, on the other hand, involves deep learning models. It's largely dialogue driven. A dialogue is, a customer types in something and then the agent tries to understand it and then it responds back. So it involves a bit of AI over here. It actually can handle spell checks and abbreviations as well. Keeps up of context. Context is, let's say I'm trying to chat uh, with the AI saying that I want to talk about my credit card. And while chatting with that, suddenly I realize I have a few questions about my loan as well. So actually, I start talking about loan. That the AI is intelligent enough to understand, the context has switched from a credit card discussion to a loan discussion. Empathy. Empathy gives more human-like feature to the AI. So these days we have technologies, or we have markup, the SSML language, the speech synthetic markers language. We can actually give more human-like empathy to the conversation. And then as long as you have enough training material, you can always train on the AI to support multiple lines of business. Now, if I look at a high-level basic architecture of a messaging AI, right? So what happens? I have a user. He's using a user interface. It could be a mobile, it could be a web, and then he types in something. So you have a basic aggregator layer. What this aggregator layer is, it intercepts the request and then it kind of decides what needs to be done next. So the first step would be it will send to the NLU. NLU is a natural language understanding. What natural language understanding will does is it will actually try and understand what you are trying to say. Then this NLU will pass the content, pass the control over to this intent classification module. What the intent classification module does is it will try to identify what the user is trying to say actually. Once the intent is classified, you have different options over here. The dialog manager takes control over, and then it will decide, okay, what should be the next flow. Let's say I type in I want to book a flight from, let's say, San Jose to New York. Then the dialog manager will take over, and then it say, okay, what date do you want to book and what class you want. So natural language generation, based on the inputs from dialog manager, it will provide a response to the user, and then the dialog will. So meanwhile, there is a lot of logging and monitoring also happening at the background, based on which we pull out the reporting as well. And then these aggregator layers, with help of some of these AI, and then they can interact with external APIs also. What external APIs in this case could be? It could be any of your organization APIs. Let's say I want to pull out some information from an Oracle database. So using some APIs, I can always pull out the information, especially like an order. So this on a high level is a messaging AI. So moving on, so we have another topic which is a conversational IVR. Conversational IVR is a more speech-like IVR replacing your traditional IVR. It offers more personalization. You can actually customize persona. So you can, depending on the user, you can actually select which persona needs to talk to that particular user. Multilingual support. So these days IVR has progress support. I can support multiple languages. The same can be implemented for the chatbot as well. It can also support multiple languages. Caller identification. Caller identification is an interesting concept. Now, these days, if you have to authenticate someone, right? Let's say you're trying to reach out to a bank, it will say, please enter the last 4 digits of your card and your PIN number, right? And then it will try to identify. So what caller identification they are trying to implement these days is, I will set up a passphrase initially saying that, hey, I'm Prasanna, I'm calling from India. That's my passphrase. You can customize your passphrase. So a combination of this passphrase as well as a mobile number you're trying to dial from, it will try to authenticate you without the traditional PIN and card number. Call steering, the IVR is also somewhere it's an overlap with the intelligent call routing and call steering. It can actually redirect the right support person. So as we discussed, right, it can say if you say I want to talk about, I have an issue with a transaction in my credit card, it can try straight away redirect to the credit card support personnel. If you say this is regarding the same issue which I have discussed earlier, then it can redirect to the same personal issue. Leverages a combination of deep learning and natural language processing models. So what is happening is there are a lot of phonetic models which are being implemented. What phonetic models help is they try to identify the current word, even if there is a small, pronunciation issue. They will try to identify, okay, this is what the user is trying to say. And then we have noise cancellation and speech diarization features as well. Speech diarization is, let's say you're calling the phone and then there are 2 or 3 people speaking in the background. So speech diarization actually can filter out your voice. And obviously you have the speech to text and text to speech features as well. What is text to speech required? Let's say you ask for some document, something, and then it has to read out a document to you or a extract from a document, then the text to speech will come into picture. So if I look at my architecture, right? So this is again a high level architecture. A user is trying to dial into a 1-800 number. The first request goes to the DTML tone recognizer, which is a dual tone recognizer. The automatic speech recognition module will pick up and try to recognize you. And then using the NLU module, which is a natural language understanding, using a combination of speech recognition and then grammar, the Ngram grammar ML will try to decipher what is the intent of the user. Once the intent is identified, then it will set up the context and any relevant multimedia for the same, which will once the context is set up, it will go to the dialogue manager. The dialogue manager, as we say, is central, which will actually determine what should be the next step in the conversation. So the dialogue manager will determine the next step in conversation, and then it will play back the relevant media. It will select if there is a relevant media, it will select it, or it will go to the SSML, the speech synthesis language, which will actually generate the response that needs to be paid out, and then the user will hear. So the media planning, what it will do is it can either give you a pre-recorded player, or it can take a text, read it for you, or it can actually, based on what the dialogue manager is suggesting, it can whip up some text on the response, and then it can play it back. And yes, it has its own integration with your company APIs or telephonic system. So this, on a high level, what happens in the conversational AI. Moving on, so we covered the messaging AI, we have covered the conversational IVR. The third context is the customer assist. Now, customer assist is a new area which is coming up. So what happens in customer assist is, let's say you are an organization which says, I don't want to implement all this AI in chat or IVR. I want to, I need some kind of a force multiplier for my agent actually. So I want my agent to handle concurrent chats. So what happens is, in customer assist tools, the control actually is directly, when the control is transferred to the agent, right? An active background process will actually keep monitoring the entire conversation. Let's say I call the agent and say I want to talk about my last purchase order. So this background process, it will actually pull up the entire information regarding the last purchase order and then display it on the screen for the agent. Okay. Now remember, we had this old flow where the agent used to say, give me a moment, let me pull out all your information. So that hold is gone. Now what is happening? The background process will actually pull out all the information and show it. So in case you're doing a voice call, then it can actually suggest tips as well, where you say that if a customer calls up the helpline and say, hey, my son got an admission in Harvard, I'm looking for a loan for him to process something. So any senior call center agent or contact center agent will tell you the first thing would be start with a congratulations, and congrats on getting your admission, right? So these kind of tips, it will start displaying to the agent, saying that okay, congratulate the customer. Or in case the agent is going through a difficult call where the customer is unhappy with his experience, it will actually show some suggestions. So implementation has shown the AHT stands for average handle time, because the background process is proactively pulling up all the information. So the average handle time per call has actually reduced up till 30%. Okay. In case of chat has actually gone up a little advanced. So if I'm a customer, I'm chatting with an agent, right? What happens in chat is, if I ask a basic question like, hey, what is the status of my order? So the background process will actually send a response back to the user saying that this is the status of your order. Okay, so in this case, the background process is not actually waiting for the agent to decide what needs to be done. So as far as the customer is concerned, he will never know whether the response is from an AI or is from an agent. Now, in case the background process is not able to decide what the customer wants, it will actually provide some suggestions and stop it there. And then in that case, the agent has to respond. So it is like the agent and the AI is working hand in hand, and from the customer, he always feels that is actually working talking to an agent. So advantage, the agent is able to handle multiple concurrent requests at the same time, and in some implementations, we have seen that when given the right tools, the agent can actually service 7 customer chats at the same time. So how do you implement it on a high level, right? A customer is trying to reach out to the channel. There is a channel server, there is an interceptor here. The interceptor actually talks to the ML model. The request is intercepted by and then passed out to the ML model. The ML model decides the next step. If the ML model feels that it needs to pull out some information regarding an order, it will actually pull out using a bot and show it on the screen. In case the ML model needs to decide that it has to actually pull out, integrate with some of the enterprise information system, it will just pull out that information and then push it onto the unified desktop actually. So this is how a customer assistant high level is. So far we have covered three different tools. One is messaging AI, the conversational AI, and then the customer assist. The fourth one is the email tagging one. So what happens in email tagging is, let's say a customer sends out an email to a support. Okay. So now usually what happens is someone has to actually scan the email, and then they have to decide that, okay, this email is pertaining to this issue, redirect it to that particular agent and things of those sort. So AI-based email tagging, what happens is it will immediately scan the email and then it will add relevant tags. If the customer is talking about 2 or 3 different issues, it will add all the 3 different tasks. And the subsequent process with what it will do is it will assign the same email to 2 or 3 different agents. Okay. Now tags can be ordered based on relevance also. You can actually give priority saying that, hey, this particular issue is actually going on for last 2 weeks. So add a higher priority to it. So automated workflows, in case, it can actually provide suggestions to the user as well, to the agent, saying that, hey, this is the information that the customer is looking for, and it can actually suggest a response as well. A lot of insights can be generated. 95% success in adding relevant tags. This is specific to English language. There could be other languages where the success rate is a little low. Okay. So it streamlines the entire process, and then it can be expanded to add relevance. If I look at my email tagging architecture, right? So there is an email server. As soon as an email comes to the email server, there is a model which will scan the body and it will try and predict the tags. What happens is, one is this predicted tags, actually they're appended to the body and then it is kind of sent to further to the agent. Now, what the agent does is it will actually use the relevant business applications, and then he will ratify whether those categories are wrong or not. If in case he feels that the model has not performed properly, he will leave a feedback. So that agent feedback is again actually looped into the model training, and it actually is published as a newer version of this. So email tagging on a high level works. So we have covered 4 different tools over here. So what we'll do is we'll look some of the best practices. Okay. So what we have seen across organizations. So the first goal, which we always say, is you have to clearly define your motivations and goals. Okay. When we say motivation, why do you want to implement this particular tool? And when you decide, okay, I want an AI for this thing, what is a clear, you have to set your clear goals. I want AI to do only this 1, 2, 3 tasks. Okay. 1, 2, 3 tasks. Let's say the AI is trying to converse with the agent, and then, after a couple of attempts, the AI is not able to handle it. Then it has to clearly say that, it has to clearly say that, it has to clearly say that I'm not able to answer your request. I will probably transfer it to agent. So your goals should be very clear in those kind of things. Okay. So set clear goals. We have seen that AI plus human is always a better experience. You have an AI which tries to resolve the issue. If it does not work out, always fall back to a human actually. So in case you don't have 24/7 support, we suggest you always fall back to an email support saying that, hey, we've tried, the AI says we have tried to resolve the issue, but we are unable to resolve. So we have sent an email to support, they will actually respond back. Omni-channel bots with a huge volume of channels which are coming up, right? We will have to look at omni-channel architecture. I will probably talk about in subsequent slides how an omni-channel architecture looks like, right? So some of the bots which you commonly see these days, they are actually purely interface driven. Let's say you can select option A for banking, option B for credit card. But if I have to implement the same bot to a Siri or Alexa, it will not work. So we have to focus on omni-channel architecture. SSML, speech synthesis language, gives that real human-like experience to your bot. So you have options like, take a pause, or you can stress on this particular uh, word, or you can actually pronounce this particular number in a particular fashion. Finally, not a fun IT project. We have seen so many times that the organization decides, hey, I have certain budget. Let my team, IT team, whip up certain some bot based on whatever they see on this. Conversation is the key. We have seen attempts being made, and then actually that kind of impacted the NPS, the customer experience, and the NPS scores actually. So we advise not to take it as a fun IT project. Conversation design, key to the bot is a conversation design. So in this case, if you're able to see my screen, the bot is clearly setting an expectation, saying that I can help you with many things, but if I can't, I will transfer the control to someone else who can actually support you. So the conversation has been designed in such a way that user is being set expectation upfront actually. So conversation design is the key actually. Coming to omni-channel architecture, we've talked about this. So if you look at this, we will try to navigate from right to left. So you have a huge corpus of your data. It could be documents, it could be videos, it could be pictures, it could be phone calls. So you have a huge corpus of data, and then you have your own company systems, and then you have own regulations. So this corpus of data, you have an AI stack. What happens in AI stack? You will actually build your own NLP pipelines, which consists of NLU and NLG, the understanding and the generation, the language translations, the context trackers, everything, the dialogue managers, everything. So you have the AI stack, which works in consonance with your tech stack. Tech stack could be your company integration channels. It could be RPA bots. It could be your analytic channels. It could be a security channel. So the AI stack works in consonation with the tech stack. Now, if you have designed your conversation correct, right? So we suggest only an adapter should be enough actually. So if I design my conversation in such a way, saying that hey, you can select banking account or a personal account, a loan account, or a credit card system, which is in free form text coupled with SSML, you can actually just implement an adapter. This adapter will take the text and then display it to the appropriate channel. Never go for that pure interface driven where you say that this in conversation display button 1, button 2, button 3. That is going to hit your omni-channel architecture, and omni-channel is required because the volume of channels is increasing day by day. So leveraging the giants. So why are the giants coming to picture? So these days, right, if you are trying to reach out to your banks, most of the people, most organization, any organization, most of the customers, what they do is they flip open their mobile app, they go to the browser, and then the first thing they do is in the search engine, they will probably say, hey, I want to connect to T-Mobile, or what is T-Mobile customer service number, or Amazon customer service number. Okay, so that's what. So if you look at the volume, right, approximately 60% of the volume, the call volume, which is reaching the contact centers, is through one of these search engines. It could be Google, it could be Apple. So 60% of the call volume. So what these giants are saying is, okay, so we will probably provide interfaces as well, right? Let's say someone is trying to reach out to Comcast customer support. So what Google is saying is they're given a chat now option as well. So you click on chat now, instead of the IVR helpline, it will actually take to the messaging helpline. So you can actually leverage some of these where you can actually work with your IT teams to enable some of these options. So whenever people try to search your particular organization number, contact channels, the search engine will automatically search. So I've shown chat now, and this is for Google, and the right side is for Apple is giving more like, customer service. So leverage some of these channels that will improve your customer experience. So quickly, we'll talk a few minutes about the organization strategy. Okay. So okay, I'm an organization. What are some of the benefits I see while implementing some of these things? So obviously we have seen improved customer experience, service experience. Now you have 24/7 support. People can select a few options and directly they can chat, or they can just converse with the IVR and get their basic help. Self-service can be done. Time saving. So since these bots are scalable, actually, you can actually adjust according to their volumes and the entire call process flow. You see a lot of time saving there. Your agents are now actually freed up, so you can actually use them for more productive tasks. Cost saving, our analysis says investment in tech is actually more cost feasible when investing in actual human resources. User demand. So interesting is there are people who are actually saying that, I want to deal with an organization who kind of supports WhatsApp messaging, okay, or they support a Twitter, they provide Twitter service. So user demand is also actually driving up some of this adoption. Scale up and down, we have already seen. Brand reputation. So what is brand reputation? We are slowly seeing a change where users are getting a perception saying that customers are getting a perception saying that if a particular brand does not support one of the popular channels, let's say a Facebook Messenger or a Twitter Messenger, then probably the brand is not that famous. Okay, so there is a brand reputation hit also that is happening in case you're not expanding to some of these channels. Okay. So quick question. So the question is, okay, we understand the benefits. Do I need it for my organization? So first thing is, when you define your problem and your motivations and goals are set, the first thing you have to do is, do I need a full-fledged AI or something like a cognitive RPA solve my problem? So RPA, something like groupism or a UI path, they are coming with inbuilt cognitive services. So people are saying that, they are also offering saying that, hey, our cognitive RPA can solve some of these problems which you are looking at. So cognitive RPA is also some of these things. One of the option you can evaluate. Now, AI has varied success across domains. So you have to clearly see what is the success rate of AI across domains. Sorry. So you define your problem and see what is the success rate of your AI. Again, whether you build or buy, AI requires volumes for training. You have to think about, do I have that kind of volume for training? AI requires a regular upkeep, just like the way you require a human agent who needs regular, training. The same way AI also requires a regular upkeep. So we have seen a case when suddenly during the COVID-19 period, most of these travel websites were hit with huge call volume. People were trying to reach out to postpone, reschedule their travel plans or cancel their travel plans entirely. So you need an AI. Suddenly when that kind of a case comes up, right, you need that AI to be trained to be able to handle the COVID-19 kind of issues as well. The explainability problem. So AI always has the explainability problem. So in certain cases, AI will not be able to explain why a particular thing has happened actually. So that explainability problem. So let's say AI responds in a certain way. Engineers are even having difficulty even today to understand why AI has responded a particular way. So if you are looking at a domain where you need 100% success or near 100% success, but that is something which you have to keep in mind. And always there is the ethical issues. Let's say you build an autonomous AI and then let's say some hacker remotely takes control over it. Or what do you do with all your human resources? So this some of these ethical issues also you need to look into it. If you're a brand which is more concerned about, which has a series, which feels ethics is a serious liability, then that is something which you'll have to consider. So, okay, so the build versus buy discussion. So there's always a build versus buy discussion, right? So the goal is, how do you want AI to define your business? Now, if you want AI to be a big transformative difference to your business, then it's always better to go for a build option rather than a buy option. The other issue is this problem unique to you, unique to your particular business, right? There are already business products which are offering, like, let's say banking chatbots or retail chatbots. But nevertheless, the other thing to keep in mind is, even though you are buying a full-fledged banking chatbot, it will still require some kind of a training from your side. Data privacy, cloud, these days you are seeing a lot of AWS and Azure services. Do you want to share your data to some of these services, right? So you have to think about those. How competent is your IT team? Can they build an AI? If you go for the build option, the time to market and the regular technical update. Customization, although you see a over-the-counter product which completely suits your requirement, some of these customization can be very, very cost intensive. So you'll have to look at your customizations which are required. And finally, we say, if your IT team is not mature enough, you don't have to always look at it as a binary discussion. You can hire a facilitator like AppStack who can leverage and build open source or cloud services. They can build a product for you, and then they can eventually transition into your team so that your team can keep maintain the upkeep of this. So go to market strategy. So always keep your business goals. So we've mentioned it so many times that, when people talk about AI, the high rate of failure is because the goals are not properly defined. So sit with your IT team, sit with your business team, define your goals clearly. Customer, sit with your business and define clearly. Customer experience, the type of bot. Do I need a deep, a tech-driven, completely AI-driven, machine learning-driven bot, or a simple bot can also this thing? The channels you have to support. We don't want to end up in a situation where I design one conversation for a web, one conversation for a WhatsApp, and one conversation for a Alexa, right? So you have to list down your channels and design your conversation accordingly. Evaluate the risk. We already talked about that. The technology, whether you want to go find small, measure, and hybrid model. Finally, we always say, start small, measure, and iterate. So AI has depend on success rate, right? You start small and then you always monitor it. And then so critical success factors when going to the go-to-market strategy, people prefer a human touch. We don't want to build a bot which will, where people feel that they're talking to a bot. So they prefer a human touch in their conversation. Make users aware of the solution. So we have seen that in their solution. Make users seen it, but you use so many times as a failure, right? You built a bot, you have deployed it, but users are not even. It is given as a hyperlink somewhere at the corner of your website where the user does not go. So you have to ensure that you market your products that the users are available. Even go. So you have to ensure your products are available, aware of your solution, ease of use, and then the channels of those. Measuring the ROI. How do I measure the ROI? Volumes, what is the call volume which my bot is handling? What is the call bot is handling? What is the call volume which is going to the agent? Notation which to the what is the cost? Let's direct the cost for an agent handling the call versus an AI handling the call. What is the feedback from the user? What is the perception of service? What is the productivity? Let's say you've implemented AI. One of the goals is, free up the resources of the agent so that your agent can work on a much high-skilled tasks. So is that productivity goals being met and 24/7? So some of the metrics which we usually measure as, let's say you're talking about AI, right? So how many times the user intent is currently properly classified? Actually, is it always classified? Let's say out of 195 times it is correctly classifying the user intent, the remaining 5 times it is not classifying. So you have to look at that 5 times of a metric. how many times it is able to cleanly fall back to the agent. It tried a couple of times. Is it able to transfer the control to the agent, or it's kind of stuck in an infinite loop over there? And then how many times it is able to cleanly pull out information from your enterprise system. So these are the metrics which we KPIs with some of the KPIs. Talking about the future, right? Look at the future. We expect call volumes to be handled to be increased by self-service channels. People are going to use more WhatsApp, more Twitter messengers. So the call volume is expected to increase. A well-designed AI is going to become like a brand, just like ATMs define the brand. Eventually, we're going to see that a well-designed bots are going to determine who is the leader in the industry and who is the laggards. Always involve the fallback to human. And then when we talk about customer service, we are trying to mimic the on-demand service which we are providing, the service delivery. Customer service should be as seamless as a service delivery, like we have seen in Uber or Netflix. Right? Omni-channel scalable design. So many channels we are looking at. We will always have to keep in mind regarding an omni-channel design. Finally, we are going to see a AR and VR also pick up. So tomorrow we are going to see that the virtual reality also getting picked up. And finally, the last thing is talking bots. So today we have a Siri, which is our personal assistant. If you guide Siri, Siri, can you transfer, let's say, $500 to a particular recipient? So we are talking about a Siri, which is a bot, which is trying to interact with the agent bank bot, right? So bots talking to bots is an interesting world which we are looking. So this is how the future looks like. Some of the citation metrics we have looked at. So that concludes our presentation. Open for questions.
Thank you, Prasanna. That was insightful. So if anybody has any questions, I would like to remind that you can do so by typing them into the Q&A window on your screen. So let's just wait for the questions.
So we have a question. What are some of the challenges you're seeing while dealing with PII information? So personally identify information. Yeah. So every organization wants to ensure. So what we do while handling some of this PII information is we try to mask out that information, right? So because auditing and monitoring is key for it, right? So whenever the user as soon as a user types the PII information in any of these interface, the moment, even before we transfer it to the actual bot, right, we use masking, some of these techniques like masking, so that the PII information is taken off. In healthcare is still a little laggard because there are still a lot of regulations around HIPAA. So adoption in healthcare is a little slower pace than when compared to other industries. Yeah, so the next question is again healthcare. So just as I said, right, healthcare is a little laggard when compared to other industry in terms of adoption. This is largely due to regulations around HIPAA, but we expect that eventually healthcare will also catch up in terms of AI support. How nuanced can bots be while dealing with empathy? That's a good question, actually. So now we have talked so much about empathy, where we are trying to give a human-like emotion to the bot, right? So can you take it, can you design a bot at a level where, it can actually mimic an agent, right? So yes, bot can handle, can understand sentiment with the latest sentiment analysis tools which we have, right? Bot can understand and decipher sentiments so that it can generate appropriate response to the user, actually. So a combination of sentiment analysis tools plus response tips in terms of SSML, you can always design a well-defined conversation around empathy. What's your take on some of the cloud services? Yes, so we see providers like Azure and AWS. They are giving us predefined cloud services, and then they're saying, hey, you can reduce your development time by as much as 50%. So we can leverage some of these cloud services, but one thing you should be aware of, the customizations in cloud services are a little tricky. So if you are designing something which is specific to your business, then you might want to keep the kind of customization, the amount of effort required for customization when using leveraging some of these cloud services actually. So we have technologies like open source technologies like Rasa, which can still perform as good as one of these cloud services. How will voice customer service evolve? So voice customer service, with the rise of personal agents like Alexa and Siri, right? So we expect actually people are going to leverage more and more of voice customer service when compared to chat actually. So these days, voice customer service, conversational IVR is also very good. But we have to work on a Siri interacting with a banking bot or your personal bot. That is a little unexplored. What is happening is there are limitations in it on how voice customer service on these bots talking to those the actual bots, the organization bots. But that's the future actually. Google and Siri providing services is the future. So we are going to see a lot of volumes going there. Any more questions?
Yeah, looks like we don't have any more questions. But if there are any questions that we didn't get to, or if you would still like to reach out to us, you can always send us an email to info@appstechcorp.com. We will be sharing the answers along with the recording of this webinar. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar, and we wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.